Hello and welcome back to Planet Coaster, where we'll be working on a new section of the park today. Now, I was gone out of town for the past 5 days. If you guys don't follow me on Twitter, I did kind of announce it on there. Probably could have announced it in the video, but hey, the previous 5 days or so were pre-recorded things that I just had time to do in bulk. And obviously I can't record Planet Coaster in bulk, as it is the most time-consuming of all my videos that I do make kind of on a weekly basis. But enough about that. What I do want to go over is what we're doing and why we are making a giant hole in the ground back here behind the small little outpost that we have been working on. And this section here, this is a crater, and it's going to have some canyon lines kind of forming on one side for now. This is just kind of the rough end, just so I can get a loose idea of how big this thing's going to be for later. And we will be having the park interact with this a lot. And this will be kind of the main section of the park, so that we don't have just a permanent plane that our buildings are sitting on. I do want to end up including some height variations in the terrain and height variation via the building, kind of just building platforms up into the sky. So that is why we need to establish kind of the main bulk of the canyon. The canyon, of course, also will hopefully have a smuggling run kind of themed coaster at some point. And now, the bulk of this episode is working on this monorail. Was a little annoying to get this thing working. I tried a couple different rail setups, and this is kind of the best I could come up with in the small amount of area that we're trying to connect. And we're just trying to connect the initial, I guess the name of that area is Landing Pad 13, to the high industrial, high-tech section of the park that'll house all the other rides, all the coasters, and everything else. And the guests will take the monorail from the initial section to this later on. Now, we do have to build a new monorail station, and this is very similar to the last one, though there are elements that are changed. So, for example, the last station was more of a open-winged kind of platform design with a central covering over the track. This one's the opposite. We're going to have coverings on the platform and nothing covering the track. So that way we get a shape variation, but also we are changing kind of the balance of it as well. So the previous one was very symmetrical, very much the same. It's very pyramid-like in terms of dimensions. Now this new one, this one here is more similar to like an Elite Dangerous landing pad than anything else. So we're going to have the standard angled command center, very, very much like Elite Dangerous does. Also, it will be very reminiscent of maybe the Condor 63 ride that we have on the previous park in this essence as well. Kind of this large box shape. And the queue does go through this, and it does interact with this main structure. And the right structure will end up just being a taller side piece, just giving it some extra depth so that it can try and balance out the left and right side a little bit. Up here, using the roof to get our initial angle so that I'm all set there, and setting it a couple units down allows for easy placement so that all these items do line up fairly flush to the walls. And I think that's a good trick to use to try and say if you're making a round thing or a slanted thing, try and find something already in the game at that slant so that you're able to springboard off of that to increase the productivity. And that's really what Planet Coaster comes down to. I think if anyone has enough time, they can make this. I don't think this is crazy difficult. It's just a big time sink. And so as you get comfortable and as you learn different techniques and speed up the process, you enjoy the game a lot more than before, because you're accomplishing a lot in a shorter amount of time, and therefore you can feel like you're progressing. And as I said last episode, confidence in the progression, confidence in what you're laying out matters a whole lot in these type of things. So we're going to use some scenery objects just to bulk up some of the sides, some of the foundation a little bit. There will be some round elements, as you can see. We're going to have 3 almost containers kind of along the side here, and we'll eventually run some piping to them. And we'll be doing a little bit of a different overall design here. This one is using less angled pieces, and this one's using more boxy pieces and more hard angles and edges. And I think that's a little bit more of a firm stand on the futuristic modern look than our previous one. The previous one maybe was a little bit more 80s inspired. This one might be a little bit more technically modern day inspired, just kind of shoved into this future in terms of the details, but like having pipes do, you know, overpasses over the path of the monorail, having it wrap around the building. You know, that's all stuff that you can see in buildings today if you just go possibly look at a refinery plant on Google, and you can just see pipes and pipes all interacting with the building, interacting with different subsections of the structure itself. Of course, ventilation is a great little detail piece when it comes to sci-fi. You know, you can do a lot with ventilation. You can make steam come out of it. You can make probably noises come out of it if you want to mess with the speakers in Planet Coaster. You can also just use that as a little extra piece of layered depth to your structures. So vents create shadow areas, they create more textures, kind of these vertical textures, or horizontal depending on how you lay them. We'll also use lighting on the rails here. One, this is so that at night from afar, when you're playing the game, you can easily recognize the edges of this building, and also it looks cool. So that is why we are doing that. And at nighttime, of course, this thing does light up. It looks great. We have a few lamp posts kind of worked into the structure to bring even more light. In fact, I'll show you guys after we're done with the speed build section kind of how this thing works, and that it does work. I think last episode with the monorail, I was getting a few comments saying that it might not work. I did give it a test that our plans were indeed going to be functional in terms of getting guests to only take the monorail into this section of the park. Some people apparently were reporting possibly initially at release that a path was still required to get that to work, but in my case that is not required, so you guys can rest easy there. You can use transport rides in a way that is a little bit more intuitive than possibly first thought. Of course, we're going to have grates, we're going to have black elements and gray elements here, some orange as well, and I do want to establish kind of a foundation around the queue and kind of seal this structure in. I do want to upload it to the workshop. I don't know if I'm going to be able to add the station to the workshop itself with it, but I'll be able to upload the building at least and hopefully get that to you guys as well. If you want to download that, that should be in the description box down below. Now, as for colors, this is a little bit different than the previous section, so I haven't actually fully conceived what colors I'm going to use. In fact, you guys can let me know down below what colors. I'm leaning towards blues, possibly some blacks, whites, and oranges. So we're getting rid of the rust colors, hopefully. So the reds and burnt yellows and things like that, because this section and continuing will be a little bit more new, a little bit more freshly painted, and it's supposed to look a little bit more high tech. Though adding some industrial pipes to the side and the back side here does look pretty good. Now, the back side of the station is supposed to represent a little bit of a facade, very similar to what we did last episode. In fact, I do add a couple of those facades to the wings of this off camera so that it does look a little bit bulkier. It does look like you are approaching a big area from afar. And also I need to decorate the track. I don't even know what to do with that. I could do wrecks out there. I can do potentially solar farms. There's a whole lot of options that I can do just along the track itself. Mess with the terrain a bit. Possibly mess with the track some more. And add some trees. Don't know how many I want to do of that though, because this is supposed to be a little bit more of a barren place rather than a lush place. And at this point, we're pretty much wrapping up the speed build section with a lot more detail work, some more industrial elements on the back side, and some of the orange framing that you guys have seen before. So let's go ahead and take a look at it in real time, and you guys can see how this all works. Alright, so here we are. This is the new monorail station with the flanking left building and right building attached to it, just to elongate the facade, make it feel a little bit more closed in from a distance, and make it look a little bit more busy overall. So when I do upload this, just ignore the left and right building itself. Those are actually not part of the blueprint. It's just going to be the middle station here. And this layout is a little bit different than the last one, as I said. We don't have the open wings. We have more covered kind of platforms to the left and the right. And we have an open track covering here. Also, unlike the last one, the platform on the opposite side is actually covered by a building and wraps a little bit better to the front as well. Mainly from this angle, you could probably work it as a two-way kind of central station if you want to, but I would recommend just making sure the entrance and exit is both on one side. The other station on the previous build, that can work on either side. So then keep that in mind maybe as you go through here. The front centralized kind of staircase here, I think is a nice feature. It's not to the side like previously. We'd still have a information booth over here to sell tickets and things like that. We have our path going under, and I did color some of the floor tiles here. That way you guys can maybe use that as reference as to where the path is going. And I do recommend maybe aligning it to the grid so you can get some square pathing. That was a suggestion from previous. In fact, you can get some nice square pathing here on the platform by doing that as well. So we got, containers off to the side. We got plenty of little windows, doodads, things like that. The command kind of center up here. A little antenna. I didn't want to cover this thing with antennas like, all the other buildings. We'll keep it a little bit more minimalistic, I think. Not mineralistic. It's not a rock, as far as I know. We got more piping going across and wrapping around to the back side here, which connects back down to the floor. Now, I did want to keep this maybe a little bit open so that maybe they can see where they are going. They also get a small glimpse of where they might be going as well. And then hopefully once this is decorated, it might look a little bit nicer than just having a hole missing in the wall, I think. The back of the command section looks pretty standard and sci-fi and high-tech, of course. If we go back over here, you can see it does have a good presence on the horizon, which I do like. So from afar, it does read, and hopefully when we get into the bulk of the park, we'll drop down the skyline a little bit so that you can see farther into the park. But I did want this initial wall here to just kind of hit you in the face, and hopefully that reads well enough. It's mainly visible just from the queue on the F63 here, which I like. It kind of gives a sight line for the ride itself and something to look at while you're spinning around in a big circle. I do want to also maybe cover up some of these entryways and exits from the underground tunnel section of the monorail that is a little ugly, and to make that maybe match the rest of the theming would be a good idea. Maybe widen out the tunnel as well, make it look a little bit better lit, and maybe more sci-fi. Who knows? Maybe some doors can open and close down there. We do have triggers now. So if we go back over here, you can see I was testing some things. Now this isn't permanent, of course, even though really myself I could just end the series here and be like, oh, park's done. There we go. GG. We got a ride on this side. But I was testing out to make sure people could come to and fro. In fact, if I do play this, speed up the time a little bit so that we can get a monorail arriving. They do fill it with people just fine. Our mechanic looks like he's busy off to repair the section. The One downside that I noticed is the staff does not get on monorails or transport rides. So if you're going to have separate theme parks in essence like this, what I suggest doing is having your own kind of entertainment section in terms of like staff over here, as they will never go to the other section as well. But there was a ride. I added some drink shops just so they're content enough to stay here for a little bit. They do get in queue, and as you go around, kind of wrapping around the building here, you're kind of greeted with just the long line waiting to get on and off. And it works really well. You know, a centralized kind of loading, unloading area. Kind of wish the staircase wasn't quite broken. They kind of cut the corner there, which is understandable. The pathing isn't 100% great, but oh well, I guess worst case scenario, I might add like a trash can or something to kind of shepherd them around. That is something to look at. Now, beyond that, of course, as I said in the speed build section, I hope you guys can come up with a color palette to maybe use for the high-tech area. So the high-tech, you know, I'm thinking some blues, I'm thinking some oranges still, of course, because this is Elite Dangerous, blacks, whites, but I want to try and stay away from the rust colors that we were using previously. But I do think that's it for this episode. I will show you guys what it looks like at night, because nighttime shots on this park I think is the best shots currently, just to see everything lit up. I do like the touch of green from some of the consoles as well, and also from a distance it just reads really well. It just reads. So you get something to look at potentially off there. We have a little too many people, I think, so the sooner we expand that, the better. Anyways, if you guys enjoyed today's episode of Planet Coaster, feel free to subscribe to my channel for more creative goodness such as this. Hopefully we'll have more Planet Coaster a little bit more regularly now that I am back from break, so do look forward to that. And let me know in the comments down below what you want to add, change, or anything like that. If you want me to play anything, I'll be happy to hear it and take a look at it. So I'll see you guys in the next episode.